May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this gathering to celebrate the birth anniversary of the younger grandson of the Prophet of Islam, our third Imam, Imam Hussein bin Ali wa Fatima, salawatullah alayhim ajma'een. It was an occasion where even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to send the angels to greet the Prophet on this occasion of the birth of Hussein bin Ali. And following that sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we continue this celebration on the anniversary of the birth of the younger grandson of the Prophet of Islam. I would like to take this opportunity to talk about a theme on the ayat that I have recited from Surah Rum. I'm sure many of you who have heard me speaking in many wedding gatherings here, I use that ayat again and again and again. And I'm starting with it again tonight. We are followers of the Ahlul Bayt. Ahlul Bayt means the family, referring to the family of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so for us, the issue of family and family life is part of the identity of our deen and mazhab. We are Shia of Ahlul Bayt, followers of the Ahlul Bayt. And so keeping that occasion in mind, I would like to take this opportunity, inshallah, tonight and the next 2 evenings, to talk about the family life, especially about the roles and responsibilities of husband and wife in the family. And you will say, well, we already know, we already married. But we need to look at issues from the Islamic perspective again and again and again. Always to bring ourselves back on a practical level to the values that Islam, promotes in this area. Let me begin by talking about this issue of, importance of family life in Islam. One of the most appealing features for many converts who come into Islam is something which is very interesting. If you ask them, why did you become a Muslim? What was the most important, aspect of Islam which appealed to you? The answer would be very different from those who are born in Islam and from those who are outside Islam. People who look at Islam from outside have a different perspective on certain issues than those who are born in this faith. Many things we take for granted. There are many things that we do not even appreciate the value of those values, the issues that Islam talks about. When I, was reading a book written by the various converts about, why they became Muslim, one of the prevailing theme was, as if I summarize their statement, was that Islam doesn't leave you alone. What does it mean? It means that in whatever aspect of life you turn and think about, you will see Islam has an opinion. This comprehensive nature of Islam basically is the most appealing feature of Islam for those who come from outside. And those who actually come from outside based on the studies of the faith. Because when they look at it, they see this is a religion which talks about all issues of life. From spiritual to mundane aspects of our life, from personal to public life, when we talk about financial matters to public service, all the way from bedroom to washroom manners, in all these areas and many more, Islam has an opinion. Sometimes the opinion of our faith would be in detail, sometimes very general guidelines. And Islam would say, okay, this is where you have the choice to do whatever you want to do. And this is something we have to keep in mind, that our faith is with us all the time. Islam is not a hobby that we do occasionally when we have nothing else to do, we do that. It is not a weekend religion. It is not only a religion of khushali and wafat and shahadat. Islam is a way of life for us every day, every hour, every minute, every second. We live Islam, we breathe Islam. And this is something we have to realize. And so when we look at family life, Islam has given great importance to this. It doesn't only talk about, who are the people who are eligible to get married to one another, what are the criteria, No, it talks about the form and the structure of the family. And it has also assigned the roles and responsibilities within the family context. And what I would like to do tonight is talk about Hazrat husband. We'll come to the Bibi tomorrow. It's khushali, even if you don't like the theme tonight, at least show your happy face. Salawat padhne ek baar. Let me say at the very beginning, as the principle in Islam, that Islam is assigned the leadership role within the family context to the husband. Husband is the leader. You should be happy for that, huh? But you don't know what it means. This opinion that within the family context, husband has been given the role of leadership, this is a unanimous opinion of the Shia scholars. Based on the ayat of Quran we will discuss later on from Surah An-Nisa, which talks about, qawwamiyyat of the husbands. And this is not only, the scholars of the past like late Ayatollah Khoui and the late Imam Khomeini. No, even the present, scholars, the Grand Ayatollah Sistani and the other prominent Maraji of our time all hold the same opinion on this issue. What is interesting is that even those scholars who are known, quote unquote, reformists these days, even they agree with this concept. The late Ayatollah Fadlullah, Ayatollah Ibrahim Jannat in Qom, Ayatollah Sani, they also agree with this issue that when it comes to the issue of leadership within the family context, this role has been assigned by Islam to the husband. And so, when we hear sometimes our own people using the words like, or Islamic law or the Sharia is misogynist or woman-hating, they have to really consider their opinion about it. That, all these ulama, based on the ayat of Quran and the hadith of the Masumin, they are all women-hating? Come on. And this is where we have to understand, what does this concept of being qawwamun mean? But before even we go to this ayat from Surah An-Nisa, it is important to understand the concept of leadership. Leadership is an important role in human society, and this has been there from day one. No government, no army, no municipality, no school board, no company or corporation, no social unit of any size or form can function properly without a leader. It's a given. Study sociology, and you will see that this is one of the widely known sociological principles. And Islam agrees with this concept. Any social unit where the unit consists of more than one person, there must be a leader. Otherwise, it will not function properly. Amirul Mu'minin Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, in a slightly different context, addressing the slogan of the Khawarij after Siffin, he added something very powerful where he says, إِنَّهُ لَا بُدَّ لِلنَّاسِ مِنْ عَمِيرٍ. people must have a leader. And then he says, not only that people must have a leader, لا بد للناس من عمير بر أو فاجر. Any unit of human beings, a social unit, must have a leader, no matter whether the leader is good or bad, bir or fajr. Why? Because if you don't have a leader at the helm of the society, even if he is not perfect, he is not good, there will be anarchy and chaos in society. There will be total lawlessness and disorder will prevail. And so when we talk about this concept of leadership, this is one of the very well principles in sociology and accepted by Islam also. And when we talk about family, family is this smallest social unit in human society. And there also somebody has to be assigned that duty and responsibility of being the leader. And Islam has assigned that to the husband. In Surah An-Nisa, ayat number 34, it says, الرجال قوامون على النساء. I'll leave the rest of the ayat for later on. That men are qawwamun of women. What does qawwamun mean? It's plural of qawwam. The normal translation you will see in the Quran is manager or maintainers of the women in the family context. And this word comes from qiyam, which means to stand up and do something. You can't be a leader sitting there idle. If you are a leader, stand up. Stand up and do what you're supposed to do. So even the root of the word qawwam actually emphasizes that you have to take on leadership and fulfill your duty. Allama Tabatabai explaining this word, he says it basically means idaratul ma'ash, to manage the family life. And so there are two very important things when we make the statement that Islam has assigned the position of leadership to the husband in the family context. Number one, this position is not a privilege or a noble status. It is actually a duty and a responsibility. Number one. Number two, managing the family life means the husband has to provide the necessities of life for the wife. Shelter, clothing, food, and whatever she needs. And so when we talk about this concept, remember this is a very important to understand. It's not a privilege, it is not a status, it is a duty and it is a responsibility. And so the husband has to provide for the wife and the children. It doesn't mean if the wife wants to work, she can't. You know, you will hear the complaint that, well, Maulana, in North America, to maintain that standard of living, we have to have two incomes. Well, if you have that, nobody stops you. But Islam says you are still responsible. Whatever your wife earns and brings and helps, it is her contribution and her gift to the husband. It is not her duty. She can actually give that gift on a conditional basis also. And I don't want to make your life, difficult, so I'll leave there for some other time. She can say, okay, I'll contribute. You earn and I earn. When we together, we raise the standard of living for our family, and I'm giving it's your duty. But, this is a gift. Gift can be unconditional. It can also be conditional. I'm sure the ladies want to know, but we'll talk about it later on. Salawat min Akbar. Those who think that, Islam discriminates, immediately they say, oh, why? Why do we have these? The roles are different. Why the husband has been given this role? The ayat continues. الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض. Number one, because of the advantage that Allah has given to some over the others. Now there's a whole discussion about it. Does it mean men over women? Or is it one against the other? But the overall issue here is that when we look at Islam, especially this is a very important point to think about, equality from the Islamic perspective and from the Western perspective doesn't mean the same thing. In the words of the prominent alim of this century, Syed Mutahhiri, in Islam, equality does not mean similarity. When we say two people are equal, doesn't mean they are similar. You can have two individuals who are not similar, but they are still equal. And this is what we are saying when we talk about the family context and the division of responsibility, not honor and privilege here. Islam says there is a difference between man and woman, between the husband and the wife. It has nothing to do with the issue of superior or inferior status here. Let me give you an example just to make things more clear. You know, you look at two vehicles. You might be the mayor of a city, and your personal vehicle would be maybe $150,000. I understand there are cars worth that much also these days, which can park by itself. Haven't seen one, but heard about it. So suppose there is a mayor of the city who has that personal vehicle, and he is traveling on the road, comes by the traffic signal, and it is red. What will he do? He will stop. But just after a second, an emergency vehicle comes behind him, goes to the other side, and goes through the red light. And that emergency vehicle and the personnel who work in it, they are actually being paid by this mayor. So you look at that emergency vehicle and the personal vehicle of the mayor. Maybe in price this is more expensive. He might have the status of being the mayor of the city, but he has to stop by the red light where the other vehicle goes through. It's nothing to do with who is superior, who is inferior. It has to do with the responsibility and the roles assigned to the vehicles. One was personal. Other is an emergency vehicle. It can go through red light where others cannot. When Islam says that in a social unit known as family, there is one member who has to be assigned the responsibility of leadership, and that is the husband. This is the responsibility and a duty, not an honor and a privilege. Salawat pढ़ने एक बार और. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given fazilat, an advantage to both the husband and wife, but in different areas. And because of that, this responsibility of, qawwam and providing for the family and the leadership has been given for the husband. In general, the husband is more suited to rub shoulders in the workforce and struggle to provide for the family. Whereas the wife, in general, and more, for biological reasons, is more suited for childbearing, and she and only she can assume the role of motherhood. The father cannot do that. And therefore the husband has been made qawwam, the provider for the wife, so that the wife is not burdened with the additional responsibilities that may hinder her primary responsibility of motherhood. And this is where we have to realize that Islam has greatly, given value to the status of motherhood. I don't think any other religion has done that. I don't think there is any other religion which says, Al-Jannatu tahta aqdam al-ummahat, that the Jannah, paradise, is beneath the feet of the mother. I don't think there is any statement in any other faith like that. Motherhood has been cherished in Islam. It has a special dimension, in a wife's life. And this is where we have to realize she goes through the process of pregnancy. And that itself takes great sacrifice on her, on an emotional level, on a physical level. The issue of delivery of the child, providing the nutrition when the child was in the womb, as well as later on, and nurturing and upbringing of the children, especially during the early ages. No sociologist or psychologist can deny this reality of motherhood. They can change the laws, but they cannot change this issue of motherhood. And Islam recognizes that. And so yes, Islam has divided the roles and the division of responsibility, but it has nothing to do with the issue of honor and privilege and status. Both husband and wife are equal in that way, but they have been assigned different roles and different responsibilities within the family context. Salawat padhna ek baar aap. Let me further, probe into this issue, especially link it some of the cultural concepts that we have among the Muslims from Indian subcontinent. When we say the husband is the leader in the family, when the marriage takes place, does it mean that the wife has to lose her personality and individuality? She becomes a nobody now? No. When you talk about man and woman in general, they are same. When you talk about husband and wife in a family context, there is difference. So it's more about the responsibility and roles within the family context that we are talking about. Otherwise, when it comes to an individual, the wife as a human being, the wife as a Muslimah, the wife as a mu'minah, she still maintains her personality and individuality there. She has all the potentials to become a good mu'minah, to elevate to the higher levels of spirituality. She can maintain and achieve higher levels of iman and taqwa and piety and righteousness. And she can also fulfill the sense of duty that she has towards the family and the society, amr bil ma'ruf and nahy al munkar, the issues of charity, and many, many other things. On these areas, which are the fada'il, virtues in the character of a human being, there is no difference in the capability of a man or a woman. Rather, we can say that there would be some women who attain higher levels of spirituality than men. Even though the husband might be on a lower level on spiritual grade there, he is leader in that sense of fulfilling the duties in the family context, but that does not diminish the personality and the individuality of the wife in the family. Salawat. You see, in the South Asian culture, Muslims also have been influenced by the environment there. When the girl gets married, she is told, sometimes even by her own family, that remember your in-laws are your parents now. You know about that, don't you? You heard it? Nothing new. It seems okay. A very neutral statement. And the way it is said, we know the understanding behind it, there is nothing wrong. But sometimes, some people actually use it in a way that it is loaded with expectations. The expectations which are not in line with the values of Islam. Where the expectation sometimes is that now your father-in-law and mother-in-law are your parents. You forget your own parents. Your parents have now changed. Baba, who told you that? The Sharia doesn't say that. And sometimes a very simple misunderstanding because of this ends up in divorce. When there is an insistence, for example, from the mother-in-law saying to the daughter-in-law, you must call me mom or mother. She says, well, I've been calling you auntie all the time. But no, I'm your mother now. No, you are not my mother. It's as simple as that. And this is where sometimes, the culture goes away from the spirit of Islam. Let me give you another angle to this culture that we have. On a very subtle level, there is a shift in the identity of the wife. And this has to do with our cultural way of changing the last name. Have you ever seen the husband deciding to change the last name? It is always the wife who has to change her last name to the last name of the husband. And this also, I think, in South Asia has come from the influence of the British Western tradition. India, British ruled there for about 150 years. They have this tradition that when a woman gets married, her last name changes. She adapts the last name of the husband. For example, in India, we have this, the first prime minister. I was thinking of different names, and I said, I don't want to use any name. I don't know, they're all different people here. Some name might fit somebody, so we are going with some Hindu names here. The first prime minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. Everybody knows about him, a prominent, political figure in the world. A daughter is born to him, he and his wife, and, they named her Indira. Indira Nehru. She grows up, marries a fellow by the name of Firoz Gandhi. What happens to her? Indira Nehru now becomes Indira Gandhi. Indira is not from the Gandhi family. She comes from the Nehru family. She married the husband who is from Gandhi family. And when we talk about this, from the Sharia point of view, it's not a big deal. And I'm not saying it's haram. I just want to point sometimes, these cultural values very subtly brings things which are not really in line with, Islamic values. Why should the wife change her last name? That is her identity. She was born in that family. She still belongs to that family. She has married you. Why would the Nehru become Gandhi? Realistically, no. And this is where we have to, look at this. If you look at the Islamic tradition, from very beginning, as well as the cultures which were influenced by Islam during the early days, women go with their own maiden, name, the last name, even after marriage. They don't change. Even if you look at the tradition that we have in the family of the Ahlul Bayt, alayhi salatu wassalam, salawat min nikbara. Look at the wives of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Shaharbanu. Shaharbanu was daughter of the last Sassanid emperor of Persia. This is when the Arabs invaded Persia, defeated the last ruler there. And some people were made captives, especially from the prominent families. And two of the daughters of the king were brought. Whether this is Medina or Kufa, I'm not sure at the moment. And when they were brought in, Amir al-Mu'minin said that you have to respect and honor their status in their own societies. If they are from the family of the king, you have to respect them in that way, even though they are prisoners, but you don't treat them like others. Even if you look at Geneva Convention, when an army is defeated and they are made prisoners of war, those defeated officers are, given their own ranks and honor and privilege, even within the military prison. And so Amir al-Mu'minin says, don't treat them like others. Give them, and one of the issues that he mentioned is that, give the daughters of the king the choice, whomever they want to marry. And some proposal was given to Shahrbanu bint Yazjard, the emperor, which she refused. Then Imam Hussein's name was proposed, and she accepted. And this is how this marriage took place. But Shahrbanu bint Yazjard, after marriage to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, doesn't become Shahrbanu Hussain. That's what happens in our culture, huh? Her name would change, Shahrbanu Hussain. The name of the husband will come there. But no, she was still known as Shahrbanu bint this and that. And she is the mother of our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. Of course, she died soon after the birth of the fourth Imam, and therefore you don't see her mentioned in the stories related to Karbala. The second wife of Imam Hussain, Rabab bint Imra al-Qais. Not Imra al-Qais, the famous, poet of the Jahiliyyah era. This is a long, long time before Islam. Imra al-Qais was actually a famous chief of a Syrian Christian tribe. And he converted to Islam. But he was very well known even before that. And when he became a Muslim, Amir al-Mu'mineen had this, wish and the desire to link his family with the family of Imra al-Qais. And this is where the proposal goes for one of the daughters by the name of Rabab. And the proposal was accepted, and Rabab is married to Imam Hussain bin Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. Now Rabab bint Imra al-Qais, after marriage, doesn't become Rabab Hussain. There is no way in history you will ever see her name in that way. It's always be, Rabab bint Imra al-Qais, Zawjatu Hussain. At the most it will say wife of Hussain. But the last name or the affiliation doesn't change in that way. Even when you look at the third wife, Layla bint Abu Murrah bin Urwa bin Mas'ud al-Saqafi, the great-grandfather of Layla, was a very prominent person during the era of Jahiliyyah. Actually, he has been indirectly mentioned in the Quran. Because the mushrikeen had a statement which has been quoted in the Quran, that if the Quran and revelation had to come, why didn't it come to the two prominent figures in the two cities of Mecca and Taif? And the person they were referring to in Taif was the great-grandfather of Layla. And so she comes from a very prominent family. Interestingly, from her mother's side, she is the granddaughter of Abu Sufyan. And Imam Hussain alayhi salam, when he married her, Layla bint Abu Murrah al-Saqafi doesn't become Layla Hussain. She still maintains her name, even in history. And she is the one who is the mother of Ali Akbar the famous young son of Hussein was killed in Karbala. And this is where, we see that when we talk about this issue, sometimes, it is the culture which comes in between. Yes, husband is the leader in the family, but doesn't mean that the wife does not maintain her identity and her personality. Even to the extent of changing the last family name. The parents don't change. It doesn't mean that, yes, the new bride has to respect the father-in-law and the mother-in-law, giving them the same kind of, treatment and respect like they would do to their own fathers. But it doesn't mean that the place of the real father and mother is, diminished. No, the respect for them, the concern for them, the duty towards them is still there. You just add on to it. You do not say, okay, this is now replaced by this, which is a wrong mentality as far as Islam is concerned. And probably, in modern professional life, this issue of changing the last name can even have problems. People have to go, especially ladies, and get their official documents all, changed. And therefore, in Canada, you will see there is a new trend coming in of, hyphenated, last names. So the actual maiden name with the hyphen of the husband's, last name is coming in. This is just to get over this, the issue of, changing the official documents from their maiden name to the married name. Salawat Akbar. Of course, this is not an issue of haram and halal. I'm not saying you go and all change your documents and the names. No. This is just a perspective that sometimes cultural ways of doing things has subtle, implications. And we have to be careful that we do not get caught in that, because that will not be acceptable from the Islamic point of view. Finally, on this issue of name. After during the burial time, we recite the talqeen to the mayyit. Whose name comes there? Fala binti, the father's name. Not the husband's name or the husband's family name, not even the father's family name. So eventually you have to go back to that name anyway. So remember that, these are not that, serious issue, but sometimes the underlying, implication can be against the values that we have in the Islamic faith. Salawat Akbar. Let me very quickly go to the type of leadership when we talk about the husband being the leader in the family. The time doesn't allow me to go into it. Inshallah, we'll leave it there for tomorrow. So we'll continue with the Hazrat husband and then go on to the wife also tomorrow. Let me now go on to the issue of the mahfil briefly in Urdu. Salawat Akbar. इमाम हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम की इस विलादत के सिलसिले में, चूँकि हमारा दीन और मज़हब अहले बैत की बुनियाद पर है, अहले बैत कहते हैं वो खानवादा, वो फैमिली जो रसूल की फैमिली है। लिहाजा हमारे लिए ये फैमिली का कॉन्सेप्ट और फैमिली लाइफ और जो जिम्मेदारियाँ उसमें आती हैं वो बहुत अहम हैं। इमाम हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम के बारे में अगर देखा जाए कि इमाम का एटीट्यूड घर की ख़वातीन के साथ क्या था। इम्पोर्टेंट इश्यूज जो होते थे, एक मामला होता है मशवरा लेना। लीडर जो है मुख्तलिफ टाइप के होते हैं, इंशाअल्लाह कल हम डिटेल में उस पर बात करेंगे। लेकिन एक अहम बात ये होती है कि कामयाब लीडर वो है, चाहे वो सियासत की बात हो, कम्युनिटी की बात हो या घर की बात हो, कि वो फाइनल डिसीजंस के वक्त जो है लोगों से भी मशवरा लेता है। डिसीजन वही लेगा लेकिन दूसरों की राय भी सुनता है। A true leader or a good leader is a good listener. چاہے وہ پولیٹکس کی بات ہو رہی ہے یا گھر کی بات ہو رہی ہے، کم سے کم بیوی کو احترام دو، اس کی بات تو سنو. ٹھیک ہے آخر میں جو فیصلہ کرنا ہے کرو، لیکن اس کی بات سن لو پہلے. ممکن ہے آپ ہی کے خیالات جو ہیں اس سلسلے میں تھوڑا بدلیں. امام حسین علیہ السلام نے اپنے اس سفر میں کربلا کا سب سے اہم واقعہ حسین کی زندگی میں ہے، لیکن اس میں بھی روایات ملتی ہیں. ٹائم اتنا نہیں تھا ولید سے ملاقات کے بعد اور سفر کے بعد، لیکن پھر بھی بنو ہاشم کی خواتین جمع ہوتی ہیں اور حسین بیٹھتے ہیں ان کے ساتھ، ان کی باتیں سنتے ہیں. کچھ خواتین کو خدشہ تھا کہ حسین آپ نہ جائیں، آپ کی جان خطرے میں ہے. امام نے نہیں کہا کہ بھائی ہم امام ہیں، I am the head of the family, that's it. نہیں، امام نے بیٹھ کے سمجھایا، باتیں کی، انہیں مطمئن کیا کہ جو ہم فیصلہ کر رہے ہیں وہ ہمارے حق میں بہتر ہے. اسلام کی بقا کے لیے یہ ہمیں کرنا ہوگا. خصوصاً جو بزرگ خاتون ہیں فیملی، ان کا احترام بھی کرتے ہیں. جناب ام سلمہ ام المؤمنین سب سے بزرگ تھی، وہ بھی آتی ہیں امام حسین علیہ السلام سے، بات کرتی ہیں کہ بیٹا کربلا مت جاؤ، عراق کی طرف مت جانا. جبکہ اس وقت عراق کی بات نہیں تھی، صرف مکے کی بات تھی، اس لیے کہ ہم نے تمہارے نانا سے سنا ہے. یہ وہاں بھی امام حسین علیہ السلام انہیں بیٹھ کے سمجھاتے ہیں. اور احترام وہ تھا کہ کربلا مدینہ چھوڑتے وقت امام حسین علیہ السلام نے اپنی خاص تلوار جو رسول اللہ سے ورثے میں ملی تھی اور کچھ وہ کاغذات جو ایک امام اپنے بعد والے امام کے لیے چھوڑتا ہے، وہ امانت کے طور پہ جناب ام سلمہ کے حوالے کر کے جاتے ہیں کہ میرا بیٹا جب لوٹ کے آئے گا تب انہیں آپ یہ امانت دے دیں. یعنی یہ احترام ہے. وہ اپنے بھائی کو بھی دے سکتے تھے، جناب محمد حنفیہ کو چھوڑ کے جا رہے تھے، لیکن نہیں، وہ احترام ہے خواتین کے لیے ودین دی فیملی کانٹیکس. خصوصاً جناب رباب کے بارے میں اگر آپ دیکھیں، امام کے ازواج میں سے ان کا بہت اہم رول تھا کربلا میں. ان کا نام بھی ہے، اور کربلا کی شہادتوں میں 2 شہادتیں ہیں جو امام کے انوسنس کو ثابت کرتی ہیں، اور وہ دونوں بچے جو ہیں علی اکبر اور سکینہ جو ہیں جناب رباب کے بچے تھے. لیکن ان کا پرسپیکٹو دیکھیں، جس طرح سے رسول اسلام کے اخلاق کو اگر جاننا ہے تو خدیجہ سے جا کے پوچھو. اگر حسین کے اخلاق کو سمجھنا ہے کہ گھر میں کس طرح کا رویہ تھا فیملی کے ساتھ تو رباب سے جا کے پوچھو. بس 2-3 لائن جو شعر ہیں جناب رباب کے امام حسین علیہ السلام کے سلسلے میں، وہ سن لیں آپ، کہ جہاں فرماتی ہیں، یہ واقعات کربلا کے بعد ہے کہ ان الذی کان نورا یستضاء بہ، کہ یہ حسین در حقیقت وہ نور تھے جن سے لوگوں کو روشنی ملتی تھی. اور اس کے بعد فرماتے ہیں صبت النبی جزاک اللہ صالحۃ عنا وجنبت خسران المواضین. اے صبت نبی، نواسے رسول، خداوند عالم آپ کو ہم لوگوں کی طرف سے جزائے خیر دے. جو برتاؤ آپ کا ہم لوگوں کے ساتھ تھا، ہم لوگ خدا سے دعا کرتے ہیں کہ ہمارے ساتھ جو اخلاق تھا اس کے لیے خدا آپ کو جزائے خیر دے. اور جہاں تک اعمال میں سبکی کی بات ہے، موازین میں، اس سے خدا نے آپ کو دور رکھا ہے. بہرحال معصوم تھے وہ. پھر فرماتے ہیں قد كنت لي جبلا صعب اذول به الوب به وكنت تصحبنا بالرحم والدين. اور اے حسین، آپ ہمارے لیے ایک بہت ہی مضبوط پہاڑ تھے جہاں ہم پناہ لیتے تھے. You were the refuge، جہاں ہم لوگ جا کے شیلٹر لیتے تھے. اور آپ جب بھی ہمارے ساتھ تھے، ہم لوگوں کے ساتھ تھے، بچوں کے ساتھ تھے، ہمیشہ رحمت کے ساتھ اور تقوی و دینداری کے ساتھ آپ کا برتاؤ تھا. اور اس کے بعد فرماتی ہیں کہ آپ کے بعد پھر یتیموں کا سرپرست کون رہے گا؟ جن فقراء اور مساکین کی دیکھ بھال کرتے تھے مدینہ میں، ان کا اب کون رہے گا؟ مسکین کا ملجا و ماوا کون رہے گا؟ اور آخر میں ایک جملہ کہتی کہ رشتے کربلا کے بعد بہت آئے، لیکن ہم حسین کے اس رشتے کو بدلنے کے لیے تیار نہیں۔ اور یہ بہت بڑا کریڈٹ ہے امام حسین علیہ السلام کے پرسنل لائف پر، کہ جہاں تک فیملی ایٹیٹیوڈ کی بات ہے، خود بیوی کی شہادت سب سے بڑی شہادت شوہر کے لیے ہوتی ہے۔ تو ہمارے لیے حسین در حقیقت نمونہ ہے کہ جب آپ اپنے گھر والوں سے بات کرتے ہیں، برتاؤ کرتے ہیں، انٹریکشن کرتے ہیں، اٹھنا بیٹھنا ہوتا ہے، زندگی بسر کرتے ہیں، تو رحمت کی بنیاد پر ہو، مودت کی بنیاد پر ہو، دینداری کی بنیاد پر ہو، اور تقوی کی بنیاد پر ہو۔ اگر یہ ہو تو یقیناً گھر کے ماحول میں سکون اور پیس اور ٹرانکویلٹی کی فضا ملے گی، اور وہی سما ملے گا، اس دنیا ہی میں آپ کو جنت نصیب ہو سکتی ہے۔ خداوند عالم کی بارگاہ سے دعا ہے، خداوندہ اس قلیل بات قبول فرما، ہمارے گناہوں کو بخش دے، ہمارے توفیقات میں اضافہ فرما، امام کے ظہور میں تعجل فرما۔ ربنا تقبل منا انک انت السمیع العلیم۔